You picked up TSE Audio's X50 and you want to dial in guitar tones that are brutal AF in your own productions. So when your raw guitar tones sound like this, they sound like this in your production. And by the end of this video, you'll know how to get brutal tones just like that. But before we start, in the comments below, let me know, what are some of your favorite amp sims to use in your own productions? Now, let's get into it. All right, so we're in Pro Tools and I have an instance of TSE Audio's X50 pulled up. And before we get into dialing any tones, let's go over the interface and all the options. So first, we're gonna look at the pedal section. We have a noise gate, we have 4 different overdrive or distortion pedals, and then we have a phaser pedal as well. One thing that's really cool is if you wanna swap, you can use these arrows to move things around however you want in your own chains, or you can grab this guy right here with the arrows and you can move it around accordingly. So you can configure these pedals any way you want. So then we have the preamp section. We have 2 different preamps we can choose from. First is the X50, which is standard and comes default. And then we do have the option of using an X30. The X50 is modeling a 5150, and then the X30 is modeling a U53 from Engel. So in the power amp section, we have 1 power amp. When you have the X30 selected, there's nothing that it does. And if we go to it real fast, you'll see it's just there just as a placeholder, but you can't really change anything. Whereas when we have the X50 selected, we have our choice between the 6L6s or the EL34s, as well as the bias, which is really cool. So changing the power tubes in your amp sim and your amplifiers really helps change the saturation and the characteristics that we're so used to hearing. But being able to change the bias can really open or oversaturate certain frequencies and really change your tone. That in combination with what's going on with your cabinet section or your IR selection is really helpful in dialing in tones and getting a lot more bang for your buck. So this is a cool option to add that. Next is the cabinet section. There's over 100 IRs from like 10 different IR companies. These are static IRs. You can't digitally move the little microphone like you can in a lot of modern day amp sims, but there's still a lot of tonal capabilities. And what's really cool is you can import your own IRs too if you have some of your favorites that you like to use. Next is the effects rack. You have a tuner, you have an EQ, you have 2 different types of delays and a reverb. Then you have a preset manager so you can import, export, or share or whatever you want to do. Then we have our input and our outputs, but what's really cool about TSE Audio's X50 is the learn function. So if you're reamping or playing, click this button, whatever your performance is, it's going to read that and then it's going to optimize the input so that your input signal is hitting TSE at an optimal level so you can get the best of the saturation and harmonics and distortion and compression, all that stuff. And then next is the configuration menu, which has your user guide, your quality, oversampling, stereo processing, mono input channel, and then the easy pathway to the IR so you can add your own IRs if you want to. If you made it this far and enjoyed the video, do us a favor and can you boop that like button below for the almighty YouTube algorithm? We'd really appreciate it. And now let's get into dialing in some guitar tones into production. All right, so in Pro Tools, I have 4 instances of TSE X50s pulled up and we're gonna focus on the chorus lead and the rhythm left and right guitar. I'm gonna just start dialing in the right hand guitar with the bass track to see where we land, and then from there we'll go to the left guitar. Let's bring in an overdrive pedal, get some focus. And I'm just gonna keep this stock IR going. I'm not gonna really mess with that. And let's get an equalizer. Listen to it in the mix. where this is at in the ballpark. There are a few more things that I want to test out, so I'm going to keep messing with some tones. I want to mess with the power amp section a little bit more. All right, that sounds pretty cool to me. Now let's go to the left guitar and see what we can get there. All right, so for the left guitar, because we can't digitally move the IR, I want to pick a similar but different enough IR from right guitar so that there's a little bit more separation in the stereo. I happen to know which one I like. Now let's dial in some tone. Awesome. Now let's get some overdrive going. Just in case. Left and right, that sounds pretty cool so far with just using TSE. There's no EQ processing or anything else going on. That sounds pretty rad to me. Next, we're gonna go to the chorus lead guitars and try to dial in something special that's a little bit different, but that blends in with these guitars. All right, so for the lead guitars, let's get the input going first. And for this one, I want a different tonal characteristic, so I'm gonna go with the X30. And I actually want to use the X50's power, so I have more tonal options. All right, I'm not really liking cabinet sound of this particular IR, so let's go looking for something different. All right, cool. So I like that cabinet IR blending in with the other two rhythm. And now I want to get some reverb and delay going on there so it gets a little spacey sounding. Let's bring in an EQ, this guy, and this guy, and start cleaning up some tone. copy that over to the next track, and let's take a listen. And let's drop it into the track. So I'm hearing the chorus lead is a little too up front, so I want to dial that back a hair. Maybe negative 3 dB on both sides is the sweet spot. Let's do another dB. Awesome, so I think that sounds pretty great. Let me do a little bit more EQ tweaking on the rhythm guitar tones, and then let's play it and see what we come up with. All right, so real fast, here are the final settings for the left rhythm guitar. You can see right here, power amp, cabinet selection, and what I did EQ-wise is all right here. And then for the right guitar, let's go to the amp section, power amp, cabinet, and effects rack. And then for the lead, you have power amp, you have the preamp, power amp, cabinet, and the effects. And now let's take a listen to these amp tones in solo one last time, and then within the track. And that's the power of using TSE Audio's X50. If you enjoyed this video, you'll like our other videos in this series on amps and plugins, so be sure to check out that playlist, and we'll see you in the next video.